Before the flood, when the earth still breathed innocence and mankind walked under the direct gaze of God, the heavens began to tremble. Something ancient, powerful, and forbidden was about to break the sacred balance of creation. These were the days of Enoch, the man who walked with God. While humanity sank into violence and the fallen angels taught men the secrets of power, one heart remained faithful. Enoch was neither a warrior nor a king dying. He was a witness, chosen to behold what no mortal had ever seen, the origin of the Nephilim, and the judgment that would seal their fate. The forbidden Book of Enoch, censored for centuries, contains the chronicle of that celestial rebellion and of the divine decree that would alter the curse of the world forever. What you are about to witness is not merely a story. It is the oldest warning in the universe. Prepare to ascend with Enoch beyond the veil of time. For there, where the Watchers fell, the war for the soul of humanity began. This is the story of the final judgment. The first visions and the mission of the prophet. The life of Enoch was divided in two. By day, he remained the simple man, a father, a husband, a tiller of the soil. But each night, his spirit embarked upon a journey that defied all human logic. And on one of those journeys, as his soul sailed across the oceans of eternity, he beheld something that would change the course of human understanding. A book. It was not a book of papyrus nor of clay. It was a book of flesh and spirit. A living record composed of 24 parts, where the entire history of the cosmos was written in ink of light and fire. Within it was everything Panin, the first thought of God, the birth of the stars, the hierarchies of angels, and the sorrowful history of celestial rebellion. He saw the intertwined destinies of the righteous and the wicked, the hidden laws that govern the movement of the stars, and the mysterious paths that the soul travels after the body returns to dust. He was told that this book, the book of the celestial secrets, would be given to him, not into his mortal hands, but into his spiritual understanding, so that both heaven and earth might know what had until then remained veiled in mystery. Thus, the routine of Enoch became a sacred ritual. Each night, he ascended in spirit, passing through the veils of reality, hearing the ceaseless hymns of the seraphim, surrounding the throne, and learning from the celestial scribes. And each dawn, with the first light of the sun, he returned to walk among his people, sharing, in simple words, the profound truths that God had entrusted to him. Soon, the people noticed that Enoch was no longer the same. There was a light in his eyes, an authority in his voice. He was not a prophet who spoke of harvests or earthly kings.
Enoch spoke of the origin of the fallen angels, of the Watchers and their sin. He spoke of the impure lineage that now walked the earth, the Nephilim, and how their violence was a direct affront to the Creator.
But he also spoke of a divine treasure, an incorruptible inheritance awaiting those who persevered in the light path, those who kept their hearts pure amid the corruption. At times, dreadful visions tore him from his sleep, leaving him trembling in darkness.
He saw celestial watchtowers, once radiant with song and glory, now filled with shadows and lamentations.
He saw endless prisons, abysses of darkness, where the rebellious watchers were bound with chains, forged from the very darkness they had chosen, awaiting the great day of their final condemnation.
He saw the earth itself, his beloved earth mill, judged by the two purest and most terrible elements, fire and water.
Verdant valleys full of life turned into scorched wastelands. Proud cities were swallowed by the primordial waters.
And yet, amid judgment, he always saw mercy. He saw comets of hope crossing the dark heavens,
bringing promises of redemption for those who, repentant, turned their faces back to the Most High.
He saw an ark, a floating promise above the waters of the end.
This knowledge was not meant to be hidden. An inner fire, the same spirit that carried him to the heavens, compelled him to raise his voice, no longer in whispers to his kin, but in the public squares, upon the mountaintops where men prayed to their idols, and within the humble homes that welcomed him. He spoke with a strange duality. The authority of one who had stood before the throne of God, and the tenderness of one who deeply loved a lost humanity. He told the full story, the glorious creation, the tragic fall of the angels, the inevitable judgment that loomed over the world, and the radiant kingdom that God would one day establish for the righteous.
The reaction was divided. Some, with frowns and mocking smiles, called him mad. What does a simple farmer know of the secrets of the infinite heavens? They said.
His words are born of sun and fatigue. Others were silent, not out of disbelief, but out of fear.
Fear of the Nephilim, who still walked among them. Fear of changing their lives. Fear of the truth.
But many, a remnant Avland, felt the weight of truth in his words.
They perceived the gravity of his warnings and the sweetness of his promises. And they began to change. They began to pray, not to idols of stone, but to the invisible God of Enoch. They began to gaze upon the heavens, not as an empty ceiling, but as a living book of signs, with newfound reverence in their hearts.
The visions soon called him to a higher form of communion. He was to speak directly with the angels. One night, as he prayed in solitude upon Mount Sinai, a place destined for future revelations, he opened his spirit wide.
Before him appeared a being woven of moonlight and stardust, its eyes containing galaxies and trembling with grace.
And it was an angel of the Most High. The celestial being bowed, not in worship, but in reverence, and it spoke. Enoch, your words, your prayers, and the tears of your heart have been heard in the highest heavens. Do not cease. Continue to write what you see. Your testimony shall be sealed for a distant generation.
Describe the paths of the sun and the portals of the moon. Describe the final destinies of souls and the inevitable fall of the wicked. To you shall be given the knowledge that men lost in their pride furs,
The understanding of the heavens and the unmistakable signs of the final times.
Enoch nodded, feeling a sweet dizziness, a divine intoxication. He stood at the threshold of his great work, the writing of the book that would contain his journeys between heaven and earth. He knew with absolute certainty that his life would never again be that of an ordinary man. He was a bridge, a witness between two worlds. His mission was to carry the light. Against the growing darkness that thickened each day behind the veil of the visible. He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the spiritual quill within his soul, want-to-runt.
Knowing that soon he would write words that would echo through millennia.
and his entire being filled with a blend of total obedience and sacred trembling. The scribe of God was ready to begin his work.
The Ascent through the 7 heavens. What Enoch had experienced until then was but the vestibule of the heavenly palace.
One night, it was not his spirit that was taken in a dream, but his whole being, in full consciousness, that was lifted up.
He felt the ground vanish beneath his feet, and he was carried beyond the highest mountain of the earth. Not by angelic wings, nor by a chariot of fire, but through an opening in the veil of the world. A dimensional gate opened only for him. Thus began his ascent through the 7 heavens, a journey across the divine architecture of the cosmos, each level more glorious, more pure, and more awe-inspiring than the last. The first heaven unfolded before him like a vast vault of liquid crystal, suspended above the world. This was the domain of the mechanisms of creation. Here, legions of angels oversaw the rhythms of the earth. He saw angels shepherding the clouds, guiding them toward thirsty fields. Others,
they were humble in labor, yet immeasurably diligent, clad in robes of silver gray that blended with the mist.
Their faces were the very image of serenity and focus. They were the keepers of the world's visible order. The seasons, the thunder, the snow, the morning dew, nothing was by chance.
A group of them approached Enoch and spoke with one voice that sounded like the murmuring of a stream.
We serve the order. We are unseen by men, yet without our service.
Here, in the first heaven, obedience begins. And here also ends the pride of man, who believes he commands nature without knowing that even the smallest drop of rain has its divine purpose.
Enoch prayed, overwhelmed with reverence. For the first time, he understood that the universe was
higher still. He was brought into the second heaven, and the contrast was overwhelming. Here he saw darkness, not mere absence of light. In deep chambers carved out of nothingness were the princes of the fallen angels, the Watchers.
His angelic guide spoke within his mind.
Behold them, Enoch. They were once the most honorable, the purest.
the first breaths of light born from the very heart of God. They were bearers of wisdom and power, yet they fell.
Not from hatred or malice, but from the subtlest and deadliest of poisons, pride.
Not from hatred, but from pride.
They fell through disobedience disguised as compassion and freedom.
Let us help mankind, they said.
But in their ambition they touched the forbidden, mingled the sacred with the profane, and sowed immeasurable sorrow upon the earth. Now they pay the price.
Their punishment has no end, for their sin reached deeper than that of any man.
Their punishment has no end.
They were not creatures of clay, they were sons of the Most High. And therefore, their punishment is eternal.
Amid the ruins of their faded glory, their laments still echoed, the sound of an eternity of remorse without redemption.
They did not ask for forgiveness, for they knew their choice was final. They only longed that someone
And understand the most terrible lesson of all, that even the brightest light, without humility, can become the deepest darkness.
The ascent continued, and Enoch was taken to the third heaven, a realm of beauty so radiant
that the loveliest of earthly landscapes would seem barren by comparison.
Not the lost garden of earth, but its perfect celestial archetype. There stood the trees of life, whose fruits shone with their own light, and whose falling leaves healed every wound of the soul. Guardian angels, their faces shining with tranquil joy, walked among them.
carrying swords not of steel but of pure light, guarding every path. This was Paradise,
who had departed from the earth. Yet to the left of that glorious garden opened a shadowed summit.
There, in anxious waiting, lay the souls of the unjust, awaiting the day of the great judgment.
It was not yet a place of torment, but of sorrowful awareness, where each soul endlessly relived the choices that had led it there.
Here dwell those who loved falsehood more than truth, those who took pleasure in injustice.
They wait, and in their waiting they begin to taste the bitter harvest of their deeds. But the righteous rest beneath the shade of the trees of life, and their joy shall be complete and eternal.
Enoch wept, for among both multitudes he recognized faces he had known on earth. And he realized not all whom he had loved would be found among the righteous.
The fourth heaven was an immense hall, a cosmic observatory of golden fire.
Here, colossal angels, the archons, carried on their shoulders radiant spheres of unimaginable.
Each celestial body moved according to a sacred orbit, a divine choreography. Uriel, archangel of cosmic light, whose face shone like a miniature sun, approached Enoch.
Even the sun obeys.
We open the gates of dawn and close those of dusk. The moon follows its faithful course.
Here, in the fourth heaven, time is written, and for those who have eyes to see, the end is revealed.
Enoch beheld scrolls of light suspended in the air, where future eclipses, celestial signs, days of judgment, and jubilees of grace were inscribed with mathematical precision. All is ordered. Nothing escapes the architect's gaze.
Write these things, Enoch, so that man may not claim ignorance when the heavens speak.
In the fifth heaven, the scene changed to an infinite plain of gold and fire, stretching beyond comprehension.
Here dwelt the angelic warriors, the armies of the Most High, commanded by the great Archangel Michael. Hundreds of thousands, millions, an innumerable host, arrayed in armor forged of lightning.
Bearing swords that sang a note of pure justice with every motion.
We are the guardians of the kingdom.
When evil rises on earth or in heaven, we descend, but only under the direct command of the Ancient of Days.
We are not the embodiment of violence, but the instrument of righteous judgment.
Enoch saw them train, not with the rage of human warriors, but with solemn precision, each movement an act of worship.
At the center of their field burned a perpetual flame, the altar of justice.
Before it was ever fought on earth, Michael whispered to Enoch a secret of the end times.
In the last days, our war shall be the final one, and the righteous king, the anointed one.
Not by the sword, but by the power of his word alone.
Not by the sword,
By his word alone.
Hundreds of thousands, millions, and an innumerable host, arrayed in armor forged of lightning.
Beyond that, in the serene air of the sixth heaven, lay the divine library, the archives of souls. Columns of crystalline light supported endless shelves, and upon them, millions of books. Angel scribes, robed in immaculate white, recorded tirelessly all that occurred in creation.
Every thought, every whispered word, every decision made in the secret chambers of the heart. Each soul had its own book.
One of the scribes approached Enoch, and in the angel's eyes he saw the reflection of his own life.
You too have a book, Enoch. From the day you were called,
Another scribe has filled its pages with the visions granted to you.
In the universe of God, nothing is lost, nothing is ignored.
Nothing is lost.
In that heaven, Enoch also saw the angelic princes of nations, wearing invisible crowns.
Some shone with radiant honor, others were veiled in sorrow, guardians of nations whose rulers had corrupted justice and oppressed the weak.
These will be judged more severely, said the angel. For to whom much is given, much will be required.
Power is not a privilege, it is a sacred service.
Power is a sacred service.
Finally, he was brought to the threshold of the seventh heaven, and there, all changed.
There were no forms, no figures, no architecture, only light. A light, the very essence of God. And yet Enoch could see, for his being was transfigured, made capable of bearing the unbearable.
There stood the throne of the Most High, surrounded by the highest orders of celestial beings. The cherubim, full of eyes. The seraphim, with 6 wings of pure fire. The Ophanim, the living wheels spinning in ecstatic motion, and the angels of the presence. They did not sing with words, but with their very existence.
And at the center, seated in majesty both terrible and tender, was God himself.
That dissolved every impurity. Time ceased to exist. Enoch fell upon his face,
Feeling his soul pierced and divided as by a double-edged sword. Every fear, every doubt, every trace of self-knowledge
was instantly consumed by that purifying light. Then came a voice, the voice that had set the stars in their places, the soft and fathomless voice that was the origin of all. Rise, Enoch.
You have seen what kings and prophets longed to see and did not. Keep this testimony deep within your heart. Speak, write, and fear not men, for in the final days, when humanity slumbers in darkness,
your words shall be the trumpet that awakens the sleepers.
There, in the seventh heaven, Enoch was given a new name, a new heart. There he was sealed as prophet for all generations. He understood that he was no longer merely a man of the earth, but an eternal witness of the heavens. His ascent was complete, but his true mission was only beginning. The kingdoms of judgment and the eternal prisons. After beholding the unfathomable glory, Enoch was carried in spirit to realms that stood in stark contrast to the light of the seventh heaven. These were places no man nor angel would willingly visit. They were the borders of judgment, the thresholds where order gives way to the eternal testimony of punishment. It was not the hell of fire and sulfur imagined by men, nor the heaven they longed for Riti. It was the veiled heart of the cosmos, the engine room of divine justice.
One night, while Enoch prayed upon the summit of a solitary mountain, Uriel, the guardian of the secrets of judgment, descended,
clothed in a gentle fire that illuminated without consuming. His face was grave.
Prepare yourself, Enoch, son of dust. Today you will not ascend, you will descend.
You will see the other face of holiness, its relentless justice. For judgment is not only a future event, it is also a place, a permanent reality. They were taken to a desolate landscape dominated by 7 colossal mountains.
these are the mountains of judgment. Here the fate of the 7 princes of the fallen Watchers was sealed. Upon the summit of each mass, who led the rebellion and broke their sacred charge. Every rock here is a witness.
Enoch was brought to the top of one mountain. There, within a deep fissure in the rock, he saw a figure bound in chains and full of not a body of flesh, but a form of light now extinguished, like a dying sun wrapped in ashes of remorse. It was Azazel, one of the mightiest of the Watchers, he who in his pride taught men to forge swords for war, and women to paint their faces for seduction, bringing vanity and violence into the world. Azazel lifted his gaze. Though his spiritual eyes were sealed by judgment, his soul sensed Enoch's presence.
You then, are the one who walks between worlds.
The Son of the Earth who has seen the face of the Most High.
Tell him.
Tell him, we have not forgotten the light we lost.
Tell him. Our fall still burns within our memory like an unquenchable fire. Let our punishment stand as a warning.
The judgment of God is not forgetfulness, Enoch. It is eternal remembrance. They are remembered every day, so that the whole universe may know the cost of betrayal.
As the wind carried a silence that wounded more deeply than any scream.
After the mountains, they were brought to the very edges of the heavens. There, Enoch beheld a series of colossal structures. Each portal vibrated with a unique musical tone, and behind each one opened a pathway to a different celestial realm.
These are the gates of heaven, 12 portals in all. Through them pass the luminaries you have seen.
But also the messengers of God, the spirits of the righteous ascending, and the answers to prayers rising from the earth. Each portal has a guardian, and each guardian bears a crown inscribed with the living laws of its domain.
Uriel pointed toward one of the eastern gates. Behold, through this gate the sun enters each morning. And that one, to the north, dark and solemn, is used by the angels of judgment.
Enoch approached one of the portals. As he drew near, his spiritual body trembled.
Through its translucent veil, he saw a star fall toward the earth. An angel sent to correct the crooked paths of men.
Many of these gates have been closed to the sons of Adam since the fall of Eden. But you have seen them, and your words will reopen their memory in the hearts of men when the final time draws near.
At last, the journey turned downward. Enoch was taken beneath the earth. He neither walked nor flew. His spirit was drawn into silence,
descending into the deepest roots of the world. There, in a realm that knew neither light nor prisons without doors or windows, inhabited only by echoes, shadows, and the memory of what had once been light.
These are the eternal prisons. They were not made by hands, but by the word of God's judgment.
Here are confined the impure spirits that wander bodiless, the ghostly remnants of the Nephilim. Their hybrid spirits, born of heaven and earth, belong neither above nor below.
They still whisper lies into the ears of the weak. They still deceive. But here,
Enoch saw formless shapes moving like black smoke within transparent cages of spiritual energy. Some cried out in eternal silence, an agony without voice. Others remained motionless, their own conscience serving as their only and everlasting torment.
here too are the souls of the kings of the earth, who made themselves gods.
The judges who sold their verdicts for silver. the teachers who twisted truth for the glory of men. Each one confined within a cell, built from the very bricks of their transgressions.
Is there no return for them? He asked, his voice breaking. Uriel answered with sorrow.
Not for those whose judgment is sealed, who remained in rebellion until the end. Not for those judgment is sealed, but for those still living on earth, the book of life remains open. The door of repentance has not yet closed.
This too you must proclaim, Enoch. The justice of God is perfect, but his patience is immeasurable.
Then Uriel led him to the edge of the deepest prison, an abyss of absolute darkness.
Uriel did not wish to enter.
This is the ancient Sheol.
They still await their final judgment on the last day. Enoch felt crushed under the weight of such justice and condemnation. But then, from above, a blinding light burst forth, and the entire abyss trembled.
And the voice of the Almighty resounded in Enoch's soul, not the voice of the angel.
Not even the deepest abyss lies beyond my sight, for I am the Alpha and the Omega.
As the one who judges, but also the one who waits until the last possible moment.
Enoch was lifted from that place, not by wings, but by the pure grace of that voice. And as he ascended once more toward the world of the living,
He inscribed upon his heart every image, every name, every lament, every revelation.
He knew that his words would be a heavy burden, rejected by the wise, forgotten by kings, mocked by the powerful.
Yet he also knew, with unshakable certainty, that the righteous, the small remnant.
He knew that one day his writings would be read for what they truly are, purifying fire.
For if judgment is real, so too is redemption. And you who hear these words,
This is a mirror. For what Enoch saw, you too shall see at the end of your days.
And the portals, for good or for evil, remain open still.
The Book of Parables, Mitatus, the three figures of glory. Many visions had passed. Enoch, the man who walked with God, believed he had seen it all.
the courses of the stars, the righteous and the fallen angels. Yet the deepest revelation the most dangerous to the kingdoms of the earth, and at the same time the most comforting to the humble in heart, had not yet been given to him.
It was then, in a night of absolute silence, that the Most High opened before him the hidden scroll, a celestial book sealed not with wax, but with 3 living seals of fire. It was the Book of Parables.
Uriel, his guide, said to him, "This is not a book for the days of now, Enoch."
Its content is too powerful for a world not yet ready. It is a book for the days of the end.
For the final generation, when men will lose all sense of judgment and call evil good and good evil. When wickedness will wear the cloak of virtue, and the kingdoms of this world will be built upon the blood of the innocent.
On that day, this book will be their anchor. Enoch trembled, not with fear, but with sacred awe. For he understood that what he was about to write would be hated and persecuted by the powerful of every age,
but loved and treasured by the oppressed and the broken in spirit.
Each parable shown to him was like a 2-edged sword wrapped in honey, sweet to the righteous who longed for justice,
But bitter as wormwood to the wicked.
I saw a throne, white as virgin snow, wrote Enoch in his spirit,
yet eternal in essence. His title was the Ancient of Days.
and before him was presented one,
whose face was like that of a man, yet whose eyes contained the light of everlasting stars.
Beside him stood an empty throne, reserved for the elect one.
He wore no golden crown, yet all the hosts of heaven bowed before him. His countenance was serene, yet his gaze saw through every mask, every excuse, down to the core of the spirit.
Asked Enoch, overwhelmed.
Who is this Lord of Spirits?
And a celestial voice replied from the throne.
This is the Son of Man, to whom all justice belongs. He was born in my thought. He has been hidden with me until the appointed time. In him dwells all wisdom, and in him my spirit delights.
His throne shall be everlasting, and to him shall be given the judgment of all kings and mighty ones of the earth.
Enoch saw the Son of Man invested with authority before the Ancient of Days.
And all creation, from the highest seraph to the smallest particle of dust, fell silent in solemn expectation.
The books of the lives of men were opened. One by one, the kingdoms of the earth passed before his throne.
Those rulers who had acted unjustly, who had despised the humble, who had fattened themselves on the blood of the poor,
who had twisted truth to preserve their power, were stripped of their false glory and scattered like chaff before the wind.
But those who had hoped in righteousness, the oppressed who had kept their faith, were raised from the dust and clothed in honor.
This is the day of the Anointed One. He will avenge the blood of the martyrs.
He will reward the faithful, and his scepter shall be perfect justice. In the second parable, the scene changed. Enoch was taken to a vast plain where all nations of the earth were gathered. There were no walls, no temples of stone, no kings on their thrones, only one man of glory standing among them.
And from him radiated a pure, warm, and healing light. This figure was unlike the first.
His face inspired not fear, but infinite compassion. His voice was not of judgment, but of comfort.
Who is this?
Enoch asked again, feeling a peace he had never known before. And he was told,
"This is the shepherd of the nations. He has not come primarily to judge, but to heal.
He is light to the Gentiles, comfort to the sorrowful, and medicine to the wounds of the soul." Enoch saw the broken of the world approach him, the forgotten widows, the abandoned orphans, the persecuted for righteousness' sake, the despised strangers. He received them all without distinction, without reproach.
He laid his hands upon them, and their souls, wrinkled by pain, filled with indescribable joy. "To this man of glory shall be given a new name," said the angel, "a name above every name. And whoever calls upon that name with a sincere heart shall not be cast away, no matter how far they have fallen." But Enoch also saw, with sorrow, that some mocked him and rejected him.
For lacking the majesty of an earthly king. This cannot be the ruler we await, they said. He is too meek, too humble.
Yet in the final judgment, it was this same shepherd who testified on behalf of the righteous.
Whatever you did to one of the least of these, you did to me.
When you visited the sick in their solitude, you visited me. When you fed the hungry, you fed me. When you forgave the one who wounded you, you forgave me. And all of heaven burst into a hymn of love,
resounding from the seventh heaven to the outermost edge of creation.
In the third and final vision of the book, Enoch was brought to the summit of a mountain of fire, and there stood the third man of glory.
His appearance was like that of a mighty and regal lion. His face was human.
and upon his head rested a crown that burned without being consumed. This was the warrior king.
And who is this? Enoch asked for the third and final time, feeling the sheer force that emanated from him.
And who is this?
The answer thundered through the heavens. This is the Lion of the tribe of the promise. When the measure of evil on the earth is full, when heaven's patience reaches its limit, he shall descend with power and great glory, and every eye shall see him. No longer will he come as a meek lamb to be sacrificed, but as the King of Kings to claim his kingdom.
No longer wounded Pate, but the final victor.
Enoch saw this Lion King descend with 10,000 of his saints, an army of radiant light.
The mountains split before his presence. The idols of all nations turned to dust.
The enemies of justice, tyrants, deceivers, and oppressors, fled in terror, seeking to hide in caves and beneath the rocks.
But found no refuge from the wrath of the king. His judgment will be just, but swift and without return.
He will bring an end to the long winter of deceit and establish an eternal kingdom of peace and righteousness.
At that moment, Enoch fell to his knees, for the full truth was revealed to him in an instant of divine clarity. He understood that the three men of glory were not three beings, but one and the same divine being, manifested in 3 moments and 3 faces for the redemption of humanity.
The Savior who judges, the Shepherd who heals, and the King who reigns.
Then he was brought once more before the Ancient of Days.
Write this, Enoch, commanded the voice.
Seal these parables. For when the world forgets my justice, this book shall be its memory.
When the kings of the earth make themselves gods, this book shall be the hammer that shatters their pride.
And when the righteous grow weary and their hope falters, this book shall be their comfort and their strength.
And so Enoch wrote, not with ink and quill, but with a vision burned into his soul.
Each parable was a mirror of the future, a hidden judgment for the proud, and an open promise for the humble. For in the final days, more than ever, men will need to know that the throne of the universe is not empty, that judgment is not forgetfulness, and that there is one who will come Tarniv.
Not only to judge, but to reign forever and ever.
The Book of the Luminaires, the Cosmic Order.
It was a deep, clear night upon the earth, the kind of night when the stars seem close enough to touch.
The angel Uriel, whose name means Fire of God, and who reigns over the celestial luminaires, approached Enoch.
His face was serene as a still sea, but his eyes burned with the knowledge of cosmic law. In his hands he held a book, not of parchment or stone, but woven from pure light.
As he opened it, its letters, living constellations, floated before Enoch's eyes.
That we may act. This is the Book of the Luminaires. Very few mortals have been found worthy to behold it.
For man, in his small arrogance, believes that creation is chaos and that he stands at its center. He knows not that every star, every sunrise, every shadow cast by the moon obeys an eternal command and an unchanging law. Tonight, you shall see how heaven obeys the Creator.
That you may learn the secret of true wisdom, obedience. In that instant, Enoch was transported to the edge of the world.
To a great mountain in the east, a place more conceptual than physical, where the portals of heaven opened and closed with the precision of a cosmic clock. The air there was so pure that it had no weight, and the sky was not a dome but a transparent sphere, divided into degrees and sectors. The horizon was a perfect circle, marked by 12 great gates, invisible to human eyes, but radiant to the spirit.
Behold the course of the sun. The celestial year does not have 306 1/4 days.
It has 364 exact days. Each year the sun enters and exits through 6 portals in the east and 6 in the west.
It does not travel where it wishes, nor rise when it pleases. Every movement is an act of perfect obedience.
Every season,
A divine decree fulfilled.
to the letter. Enoch saw the sun rise during the winter solstice.
From the first and lowest gate in the southeast. Its light was faint, and the days were short. Then, month by month, its point of rising advanced through the next gates,
Until it reached the 6th and highest gate in the northeast, the summer solstice, when its light was powerful and its stay in the sky long. Then began its descent, returning once more to the first gate, thus completing the perfect cycle of days and nights.
Thus are the 4 seasons divided, each with 91 days. Thus is the order of life upon the earth established. The sun has a princely angel who guides it, and it cannot stray even a hair's breadth from its appointed course. Then Enoch saw the chariot of the sun, a sphere of liquid fire, drawn not by horses, but by 4 living creatures with wings, each representing an aspect of creation.
Its wheels were not of metal, but were the Ophanim, the living wheels full of eyes, turning as they sang hymns of praise.
The sun was not a blind star of nuclear fire. It was a glorious, obedient, tireless creature. When the sun reaches the end of its daily journey in the west, it does not vanish trees. It bows before the throne of God, presenting its report of light and receiving the command for the next dawn. Stand, Enoch. Each sunrise is an act of faith by the universe. Each new day, a renewed mercy God grants to creation.
Then Uriel lifted his arm toward the southern heavens. There, the moon, pale and mysterious, began her own path. The moon does not follow the sun, though she dances beside him in cosmic harmony. He showed Enoch how the moon, emerging from darkness, waxed in light for 14 days until it was full, then waned for 14 more until it vanished again into night, the very breath of heaven, a cyclical tide of light and shadow.
Enoch saw how the moon too used the eastern gates, sometimes aligning with the sun, sometimes drifting apart in perfect rhythm.
Therefore, lunar months differ from solar ones. For the moon was created to mark the times of sacred and hidden cycles, the solemn feasts, the sabbatical years, the jubilees, and the celestial signs for the people of God.
Her gentler light calls men to introspection and worship. Enoch saw other angels measuring each phase of the moon with cords of light, recording every appearance and disappearance in the heavenly books.
When man forgets God's calendar and makes his own,
he also forgets his purpose and loses harmony with the rhythms of grace. Then Enoch lifted his eyes toward the deep night, and what he saw stole his breath away. The stars were not mere distant lights scattered at random. They were armies, organized hosts, each with a name and a mission.
there are 364 chief stars, leaders of the heavenly hosts, one for each day of the perfect year.
But there are 4 more, of higher rank, which are not counted among the days. They mark the turning points, the 2 equinoxes and the 2 solstices. These are the archangels of the seasons.
He showed Enoch 4 thrones in the heavens, each presided over by one of these angelic rulers.
One for winter, wrapped in a mantle of starlit frost. One for spring, crowned with blooming nebulae. One for summer, armored in stellar flame. One for autumn, clothed in golden cosmic dust.
Each held a celestial balance, correcting time, maintaining the equilibrium of climate and life on Earth.
When man scorns the signs of heaven, said Uriel, he loses the rhythm of his own soul and falls into disharmony.
Enoch was carried higher still, where he beheld the constellations, not random shapes, but choirs of star angels,
turning in a perpetual dance of worship around the grace throne. The heavens were not chaos, they were a perfect symphony.
But look there, said Uriel, pointing to a dark fissure in the celestial vault.
Those are the fallen stars, beings who, like the Watchers, disobeyed their command.
Some, through pride, abandoned their appointed paths and were bound in abysses of darkness beneath the earth.
Others descended to deceive mankind, disguising themselves as fountains of wisdom and astrology.
They too await the great judgment.
Finally, Enoch was shown a vast celestial hall, the divine observatory, where angelic scribes recorded the passage of time. Each day had its color, each week its musical note, each month its fragrance.
What happens in heaven affects the earth, and what man does on earth sends echoes into the heavens.
That is why the Most High placed signs in the firmament, not that man might worship the stars, but that whoever observes with humility may understand, whoever understands may revere, and whoever...
Enoch fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the majesty and order of it all.
Why have you shown me this, a mere mortal?
Uriel answered, his voice filled with the sorrow of foresight. Because there will come days when men will measure time with arrogance, chart the heavens as if they were mere machines, and forget the soul, the purpose.
And the lawgiver of the Luminaires. In those dark days of intellect without wisdom.
A reminder that the sun is obedient, the moon is humble, and the stars sing praises without ceasing.
They will remind mankind that the entire universe is an act of worship. With these words, Uriel closed the Book of Light, and the celestial night came to an end.
Enoch awoke upon the mountain as the first ray of the earthly sun touched his face.
And he knew, with a fire-filled certainty in his soul, that every sunrise he witnessed thereafter
would no longer be a mere natural phenomenon, but a personal message of his Creator's faithfulness.
the philosophical teaching of Enoch, a mirror for the modern man.
The story of Enoch is not merely an ancient tale of visions and celestial ascents. If we pause and listen with the heart, we discover that Enoch is, in truth, a rupture, an early yet thunderous echo of a truth that transcends all ages, and that resounds with a peculiar force in our modern world. That the human being created, limited and fragile as he is worse,
can become a dwelling place of the eternal. The Bible, in its concise wisdom, does not describe him as a warrior like David,
nor as a wise builder of kingdoms like Solomon. He wore no crown, wielded no sword Fantust.
Yet his name rises like a solitary beacon through the generations. Why? What makes this man so special? The answer is radically simple, and therefore profoundly complex. Enoch embodies the possibility of the impossible, the full communion with the divine, in the midst of a broken and fallen world.
Think of our own lives. Modern men and women, trapped in the vertigo of speed, live in a constant search for meaning.
We chase it in professional success, in the accumulation of knowledge, in fleeting pleasures and momentary thrills.
But Enoch is a silent reminder, almost a whisper.
It is not conquered, it is revealed. And that revelation does not come by merit, but by a daily decision, the decision to walk in communion. The book of Genesis, chapter 5, verse 24, tells us that Enoch was taken into heaven,
Not because he performed great deeds before men, but because he walked with God. His life was not a desperate race toward a goal. It was a companionship cadre, constant and quiet. And in that simple phrase, he walked with God, lies the key to a transcendent life. Enoch is, above all, the symbol of the man who learns to see the invisible.
A generation that began to decay, to believe that only the material was real. But he chose to look upward.
He refused to accept that the visible was all that existed. And that is his first and greatest philosophical teaching.
reality is infinitely broader than what can be touched. We live in a culture that worships evidence, logic, and data. But Enoch reminds us that there are realities which cannot be weighed on a scale or measured in a laboratory forest, yet are heavier than all the planets combined. Eternity, purpose, beauty, holiness, glory.
These things are not seen through a telescope. They are perceived by the soul.
But with a higher vision. And that, my friends, is the true definition of faith. To live each day as though the invisible were already present. Then comes his disappearance. And he was not, for God took him. He did not die like others. He left no tomb, no monument. He became absence, but an absence full of meaning. In our age, where everything must be explained, analyzed, and categorized, Enoch is the whisper that escapes reason. He teaches that God cannot be trapped by formulas, and that true spirituality cannot exist without embracing mystery.
Sometimes truth does not shout from headlines. It hides in the silence of daily life.
And only those who walk with an attentive heart find it. Enoch represents that posture of Ur, the one who does not need to see in order to believe, who lives with the ears of the soul always open. There is something profoundly revolutionary in his story. A man does not die. A man is taken into heaven. That is scandalous to the purely material mind, for it proclaims that humanity is not condemned to the dust. We can be elevated. Enoch is, therefore, a living prophecy, a first sign of what Christ would later confirm millennia afterward. That heaven is not merely a place to go after death, but a reality that can begin to dwell within us here and now.
That our mortal flesh can be filled with immortal glory, that the human can touch the divine.
It is a radical declaration against modern nihilism, which tells us we are here only to consume and die.
No, we are here to be transformed, transfigured, illuminated, to be lifted, not necessarily in body,
but in spirit, into a life that transcends time. And finally, we return to that same phrase, he walked with God. What does that mean in practice? It means he did not run. He did not strive to impose his own vision. He did not build towers to reach heaven. He simply walked, step by step, day by day.
He was faithful in the invisible, faithful in the small. His spirituality was not a spectacle for the crowds. It was a secret intimacy. Enoch is the patron saint of all who pray in secret,
Of those who seek God amid the world's noise, of those who do not need public applause to feel affirmed. He is the patron of those who build temples not of stone, but within themselves.
Enoch teaches that heaven begins where the ego ends, that the more you empty yourself, the more space you make for the divine to fill you. That God dwells in the heights not because of distance, but because of purity sum, and whoever walks with him inevitably rises.
Finally, the life of Enoch is a preview, a trailer, a prelude of the kingdom to come.
Like a flower that blooms boldly in winter to announce that spring will arrive, Enoch was the Bible is the chronicle of that ever closer approach. God walks with Adam in Eden is not that we should escape earth to reach heaven, but that heaven will descend to earth. As the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 3 declares, "Behold, the dwelling of God is with men, and he will live among them."
Enoch reminds us that this is our destiny, to return to the garden, not in the ignorance of the beginning,
To return to the embrace, not as fallen children, but as restored sons and daughters. Enoch wrote no philosophical treatises, founded no cities, left no dynasty of kings, but his life was an eternal symbol.
A silent cry in a noisy world, a candle burning in the dark before dawn.
And today, his story remains a mirror, one that asks us, are we walking with God or running desperately after the wind?
Are we making room in our lives for the invisible, or filling it with the noise of the superficial? Are we ready to be taken, not as escape from problems, but as deep transformation of being?
For the truest and greatest lesson of Enoch is not that he was a special man tan,
But that God still, even now, in this very moment, seeks men and women willing to walk with him.
There is one final aspect of Enoch's life that is rarely explored with the depth it deserves.
And yet it may be the most relevant for our generation. His relationship with time.
Enoch lived, in a way, outside of time. In the midst of corrupt generations who lived only for the moment, he chose a different rhythm. While humanity built cities, hoarded riches, and waged wars for legacies that the dust would soon erase, he stopped to listen to the voice of the eternal. And in that pause, in that difference of rhythm,
today, we live enslaved by the clock found, driven by goals that dissolve in our hands as soon as we reach them.
haunted by the anxiety of running out of time, without knowing where we are truly going. But Enoch, that silent and sacred figure, walked along an alternative path, the path of consecrated time. His was not Chronos, the measurable, exhausting time of men.
And this is the heart of his final teaching. We can learn to live within prophetic time.
To see the future while keeping our feet firmly planted in the present. Enoch did not merely receive visions of the future, he lived in response to it. His entire life was a preview, a prophecy made flesh. While his contemporaries lived as if the world and its pleasures would last forever.
Enoch knew all things would end. He knew judgment would come, and that creation itself was groaning, awaiting its redemption. He lived each day as a response to what had not yet happened, but which to him was more real than the ground beneath his feet. This teaches us a crucial truth. The present is only truly illuminated when we understand the end.
To live without a sense of eternity is to build a house upon sand.
What comes after all this? What am I sowing today that will bear fruit in eternity?
To what story, greater than my own, do I belong? Humanity today acts as though time belongs to it.
We plan our lives decades ahead,
yet cannot guarantee a single minute.
Enoch knew that time is not ours. It is a sacred inheritance, a countdown, a golden thread connecting creation to its final restoration. Think of his walk with God. It lasted 365 years.
It was not a single act, not a fleeting epiphany during some spiritual retreat. It was a daily, silent, consistent construction. This is the very opposite of our culture of immediacy. Today we want everything now. Instant answers, quick rewards, meaning prepackaged and ready to consume. But God, most of the time, does not reveal himself in haste-a-moose. He reveals himself in perseverance.
Enoch turned time into his temple. Each day that he walked with God was another stone added to his inner altar.
His life is the perfect example of what it means to sanctify time, not to escape it, but to inhabit it with awareness.
Not to reject the present, but to fill it with eternity. This changes our entire relationship with the now. Time ceases to be our enif, or our prison path. It becomes a canvas. Every minute becomes an opportunity to make of your life an act of communion, a work of art for God.
Enoch was not lifted to heaven because he avoided the earth, but because he inhabited it with eternal purpose.
His example reminds us of something fundamental. It is never too late to begin. Scripture suggests that Enoch began his deep walk with God only after many years, after the birth of his son Methuselah.
Perhaps before that, his life was like any other. But at some point, he decided to change his rhythm. He decided to begin walking.
His story shouts across the centuries that it does not matter how many days you feel you've lost,
how many years you've walked without direction. Today, this very moment, you can choose to begin walking with God.
Lost time can be redeemed.
The story of Enoch is a calling, a call to step out of the current, to silence the noise, to seek the stillness where God speaks.
It is a call to live with the certainty that we are not alone, that there is judgment and there is grace, that there is a plan, and that our small walk has a place within it.
And so, the final teaching of this extraordinary man is simple, and yet the greatest challenge of all. Walk.
Don't run. Don't flee. Don't stop. Simply walk. Walk with God.
For with every step you take beside him, time ceases to be mortal and becomes eternal.
If this story has touched your heart, if you feel within your spirit the desire to walk as Enoch did, we invite you to share this message.
Perhaps someone you know needs to hear that their life still carries an eternal purpose. Subscribe to our channel to hear more stories like this.
Stories that remind us of the timeless truths in the Word of God. And leave us a comment. Tell us what part of Enoch's life has
Your testimony may be the light someone else needs. May the God of Enoch, the God who walks with the humble in heart,
bless you abundantly and guide us in your own walk with him. Amen.